This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
Sometimes the safest place is the most dangerous. You're tuned in to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring psychotherapist and author Siobhan Scott.
Sean Diddy Combs and the latest round of accusers have come to light. I feel like it's kind of like an every Monday thing now. It's like in school, you get chocolate milk on a certain day of the week. Every day here now, it's like a certain day, new Diddy allegations coming down. 7 new ones. These are not the 7 from last week, by the way. So we're now up to like 30-some official civil cases against him. And it ranges. There's all sorts of accusations. And here we're going to break some of them down. Joining me to discuss, Siobhan Scott, psychotherapist and author. Siobhan, what strikes me about this is the celebrity culture. I guess we're going to use that term. I don't know if that's truly what it is because it feels more like it turned into a hedonistic cult than it did celebrity culture. Like it went there. I think that's what was the guys drawing him in with celebrity culture. And then guess what, everybody? It's far darker than that. The one that specifically got me was one of the first ones reported on this last week. The 13-year-old girl that claims she was there apparently got in through one of the limo drivers, let her in and said, yeah, come on into the party. Great idea. It was at the 2000, this is 24 years ago, MTV Video Music Awards at the after party. The Jane Doe says she was in a room. Diddy came in along with a male friend, a male star, and a female star. And the two males sexually assaulted the 13-year-old while the female watched. It's an allegation, so it is what it is. But this idea that there's no, I mean, this is very unhuman. The 13-year-old was treated not like a human being. And the fact that the female stood there and watched, I mean, one could argue, well, was she shocked? I'm going to go with she's used to it based on what we hear in this story. It's not something I think that any normal human being or healthy relationship would do of like, hey, honey, do you mind if I go rape the 13-year-old in front of you? Okay, thanks. Diddy's doing it. I think it's okay. I mean, that seems to be how this played out. What is going through one's mind that this is that normalized that one could just sit there and be like, yeah, have fun, honey.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the title hedonistic cult. I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like with, this in crowd of people and unspeakable things going on. And everybody just sort of goes along with it and validates it. And what is the full extent of this going to be? It's really, I mean, we want to say unbelievable, but, it keeps happening. And so it seems like it's something far greater than anybody could have ever guessed. How
the hell did Diddy normalize this shit? Maybe it wasn't even Diddy who normalized it. Maybe it was just kind of part of their culture, if you will, in a real sick way that this stuff goes on at parties. But unless you grew up with this, at some point this was normalized. I mean, I guess I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around how you go from like, I'm at a party, okay, I'm kind of uncomfortable, I'm going to go away, they're kind of getting sexual, to like this, where it's like, your partner is raping someone and you're just like, hey, can I have another vodka and Sprite? It's exactly what's going, like, how do you get there from point A to point B?
Yeah, it's hard for me. I'm a person who has a very sensitive conscience and a very strong awareness of right and wrong and respecting other people. And I raise my kids that way. So when we look at folks who would ever engage in this kind of behavior, I can't really wrap my head around, especially to have a female that would participate in some way as a perpetrator. Again, are we looking at a lot of people with cluster B personality problems, and they all just sort of met each other and facilitated each other and were drunk with the money and power and got away with things for so long that they just continued. Yeah. And it's for me personally to wrap my head around it and say, how does anybody get there? It's like, it's beyond me. Hard to imagine.
In a lot of these cases, when I say these cases, I'm thinking of like Epstein. I'm thinking about R. Kelly. There's been a female aspect to it in terms of not just victims, but in terms of recruiting, in terms of being part of the system. We had Ghislaine Maxwell with Epstein. We had some of the women that were part of R. Kelly's harem, basically being a part of it. I'm wondering if we're going to see that here as more names come out. It almost seems like it has to be part of the recipe for this sort of world to thrive, having a safe female figure be there to make some of these women walk in and go, oh, this isn't so bad. I mean, she's a woman. She wouldn't lead me wrong. I'm wondering if we're going to see that here. And I'm wondering if we're going to see it like in a big name way of like a big female celebrity being tied into something like this. What's your thoughts on that being a possibility here?
Yeah, nothing that would surprise me. Even with Harvey Weinstein, there were women that knew what was going on and facilitated, his rape of female stars. So it's again insidious. It's hard to imagine how a woman could validate the abuse and rape of other people, and particularly little girls. But does it happen? Yeah, all the cases you mentioned.
I guess the question here on that, when we look at these other cases of Epstein, of Weinstein, something about the Steens, of what we have here with Diddy, and all of that, and you have that female figure that is in there facilitating this stuff. I mean, and sometimes we've heard allegations of them participating in it as well. How? I mean, how do you get that? I mean, what is the mindset there? Is it something where they were groomed for so long and there's almost a bitterness there of, well, I went through it and I'm okay. And it almost like validating their own abuse of like finding some reason for it by having others experience it too. So they're not alone and other people are doing this. It kind of makes theirs not so bad. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a very twisted, weird way of trying to justify this in one's mind.
Yeah, I don't know how often we could find evidence that somebody who engaged in this kind of behavior had this happen to them in the past. It certainly, I'm sure, happens sometimes, but a lot of the time it doesn't. And we never do find a good reason for why, other than they were enamored with the wealth, the power, this status that they got from this, this powerful male that they were in essence serving. And, how do people override what we think of as a normal conscience, other than maybe they never had a normal conscience to begin with? And for some reason, there just are people like that.
Yeah, that's the sad reality, I think, that we don't want to believe sometimes. Let's talk about Diddy's family. His family making statements this week. We saw them, of course, in court last week, coming in and out, standing by Diddy's side and making statements. The whole family making statements now, not just mom, that we stand with our dad. We believe him. We do not believe, this mountain of accusers that really clearly points out a lot of misdeeds. You surprised by this at all, that the kids and everybody are going to stand by dad through all of this, despite the horrible mountain of evidence that shows dad's not necessarily dad of the year?
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me, because that's how he got away with so much for so long, because he has a group, including his family members, of people who consider him God and let him get away with everything. So it would surprise me if anybody confronted him from his inner circle at this point.
That's what I'm wondering, is what does it take sometimes in situations like this where you have, let's take the celebrity out of it. Let's just say, it's a parent where someone was accused of really horrible shit. And let's, for the sake of this, assume that the children didn't know. I don't know how they wouldn't, but maybe their head's just so far in the sand, they don't know. But then it comes out, it keeps coming out. This is going to continue with a laundry list. It's not just one person, making allegations here. Do kids ever come around to things like this and make a realization? Is there an event that needs to take place to help them make that realization? Do charges against them themselves help them make that realization if maybe they got caught up in it? Or is this just one of those things where our minds really prevent us from going down that road?
I think some perpetrators are so good at masking and role playing that their families, particularly their children, really have no idea about, we've seen that with some of the serial killers, that we've talked about. Their kids don't know. They have no idea. And while it's shocking, I think normal people, when presented with solid evidence, the chorus of voices of victims, they do come to accept it. And very often that's a very difficult thing for them. How do they separate their identity from the type of person that their parent is? So it's something that happens sometimes gradually, sometimes more subtly. But I think for many, it's something that they need to work through just to come to an awareness of who are they as separate from their parent.
Yeah. I mean, and once they do come to that sort of awareness, what do you see typically? Do they still maintain contact with the parent, or when it's something this disgusting, is it like, you're out, I'm done? Or is that contact maintained for whatever reason, for their own well-being? I don't know.
Yeah, I think more often in a case like that where they really had no idea and then they find out the parent had a horrible dark side, usually they do cut contact.
Yeah. Is there any benefit to maintaining contact with someone like this? I mean, if they were good to you, because that's what goes through a lot of people's minds as well. To me, they were fine. Yeah. To the rest of the world, they were this terrible monster. But does that even matter once lines like this are crossed? If you're the child and maybe they'll never treat you that way, is there any benefit to maintaining that relationship?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. For some people, they do feel a need maybe to write letters in prison and try to work out their feelings and come to some resolution where they can keep the good memories of the parent and hold that separate from all the bad things. So it's that challenge we have of holding two opposing truths at once, that, my father was a monster, but he was nice to me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there is a process that they can go through that seems to work for them, but I certainly think a lot of them do just decide to cut contact.
Yeah, it seemed like that would make sense, but I can't imagine. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do in any situation, even when you find out all this information, because your brain's just not going to process it. It's not. It's not like, that makes sense. He's doing all these horrible things. It's dad. It's
shocking. It's very hard on the family.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're in the thick of a true crime saga, every detail sinking in, and then, wham, a commercial about something you couldn't care less about. It's like being served a microwaved dinner at a 5-star restaurant. But it doesn't have to be this way. Go for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. With True Crime Today Premium Plus, you get uninterrupted, ad-free episodes, extended interviews that dig even deeper into the muck, and early access so you can brag to your friends. It's like ordering the secret menu at a crime buffet. So, search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and savor every twisted detail without interruption.